Ambassador Kate Sullivan stood in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. She had been standing there for 3 hours, waiting for the council members to acknowledge the emergency petition she had filed. Around her, the massive circular room stretched upward into a dome decorated with symbols from hundreds of alien civilizations. Earth's symbol, a simple blue and green sphere, looked small and insignificant compared to the elaborate designs surrounding it. The council members sat on elevated platforms arranged in a circle, looking down at the center floor where Kate stood. There were 12 major species represented, each one having been part of the council for centuries or even millennia. Humanity had been granted limited membership only 30 years ago, after first contact with the Velix Collective had opened Earth's eyes to the vast civilization existing beyond their solar system. Finally, the council speaker, a tall crystalline being named Zevron, gestured for silence. The various conversations happening around the chamber died down, and all attention turned to Kate. The human representative may now present her emergency petition, Zevron announced, his voice resonating through the chamber with a musical quality that translation devices rendered into flat human speech. Kate took a deep breath and activated the holographic display in front of her. Images appeared in the center of the chamber, showing the wreckage of a human colony ship. The vessel had been torn apart by weapons fire, its hull breached in dozens of places. Bodies floated in the debris field, visible in the detailed scans. 6 days ago, the colony ship New Horizons was destroyed while traveling to establish a settlement in the Kepler 442 system. The ship carried 4,000 human colonists, including 800 children. There were no survivors. Kate's voice remained steady despite the rage burning inside her. Evidence recovered from the wreckage shows that the ship was fired upon by vessels belonging to the Draknor Empire. A ripple of sound moved through the chamber, but it wasn't the outrage Kate had hoped for. It sounded more like amusement mixed with indifference. Councillor Vexkar of the Draknor Empire rose from his platform. He was a massive reptilian creature, scales gleaming under the chamber lights with eyes that glowed a dull red. When he spoke, his voice was filled with contempt. The human vessel entered restricted Draknor space without authorization. Our patrol ships acted according to standard security protocols. This was an unfortunate accident, nothing more. Kate felt her jaw tighten. The Kepler 442 system has never been designated as Draknor territory in any official council registry. The New Horizons had every right to be there. This wasn't an accident. This was murder. Vexakar laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. Several other council members joined in, their various forms of laughter creating a chorus of mockery. Kate felt her face flush with anger and humiliation. The human does not understand how galactic territories work, Vexkar said, his tone dripping with condescension. Just because a system is not officially registered does not mean it is available for primitive species to colonize. The Draknor Empire has claimed that region for future expansion. Your people should have known better. 4,000 innocent people are dead. Kate's voice rose despite her efforts to maintain composure. Children are dead. And you're laughing? The council speaker raised one crystalline hand. Ambassador Sullivan, please control yourself. Emotional outbursts are not appropriate in this chamber. Kate looked around at the council members, seeing the same expression on most of their faces. Boredom. Annoyance at having their time wasted. Not one of them seemed to care that thousands of humans had been killed. I demand a formal investigation, Kate said, forcing her voice to remain level. I demand that the Draknor commanders responsible be held accountable. I demand reparations for the families of the victims. Denied, Zevron said simply. The council finds no evidence of wrongdoing on the part of the Draknor Empire. This matter is closed. Closed? You're not even going to investigate? There is nothing to investigate. The Draknor acted within their rights. If humanity wishes to avoid similar accidents in the future, perhaps you should be more careful about where you send your vessels. Zevron's tone made it clear that the discussion was over. This session is adjourned. Kate stood in the center of the chamber as the council members began filing out, many of them still chatting and laughing among themselves. Vexkar passed close to her platform, and she could have sworn she saw him smile at her distress. She remained standing there for several minutes after the chamber had emptied, staring at the holographic images of the destroyed ship still floating in the air. 4,000 people. 4,000 lives snuffed out, and the council didn't care. To them, humans were nothing. Primitive newcomers barely worthy of acknowledgement. Kate finally turned and walked out of the chamber. Her aide, a young diplomat named Peter Collins, was waiting for her in the corridor. He took one look at her face and knew the answer. They denied everything, he said quietly. They denied everything, Kate confirmed. She pulled out her communication device and composed a message. It was brief and to the point, addressed to Fleet Admiral Ryan Blake back on Earth. They've given us no choice. The diplomacy is over. She hit send and looked at Peter. Pack our things. We're going home. What are you going to recommend to Earth Command? Peter asked as they walked toward the human embassy section of the station. Kate didn't answer immediately. She thought about all the times over the past 30 years that humanity had been dismissed, ignored, and treated as inferior. She thought about the trade restrictions that kept human colonies from prospering. She thought about the territorial limitations that confined humanity to a tiny portion of space, while older species claimed vast regions they didn't even use. She thought about the condescension, the mockery, the casual cruelty. And now this. 4,000 people dead and the council wouldn't even pretend to care. I'm going to recommend that we stop asking for permission, Kate finally said. I'm going to recommend that we stop trying to play by their rules. And I'm going to recommend that we show them exactly what happens when you push humans too far. Peter looked shocked. You're talking about war. I'm talking about survival. I'm talking about dignity. I'm talking about making them understand that we are not pets to be patted on the head when we behave and kicked when we don't. We are human beings, and we deserve respect. They reached the embassy, and Kate immediately called for an emergency meeting with her senior staff. Within an hour, she had composed a detailed report for Earth Command, outlining everything that had happened and making her recommendations clear. The Council had made their position obvious. Humanity was not welcome as equals. They would never be treated with respect or dignity. The older species saw them as nothing more than primitives, barely worth acknowledging except when human ambition inconvenienced them. Kate knew that what she was recommending would change everything. War with the Galactic Council was not something to be undertaken lightly. The Council controlled vast territories and commanded military forces that numbered in the thousands of ships. Humanity's fleet was small by comparison, barely 300 vessels. But Kate also knew that humanity had advantages the Council didn't understand. They had been underestimated since first contact, and that underestimation had given Earth time to prepare. The shipyards humanity had built throughout the solar system were far more advanced than the Council realized. The weapons Earth's engineers had developed incorporated innovations that the older species had dismissed as impractical or impossible. Most importantly, humanity had something the Council species had lost over their long centuries of dominance. They had anger. They had the fierce determination of a species that had clawed its way up from a single planet to touch the stars. They had the unity that came from being the underdogs, the newcomers that everyone looked down upon. Kate finished her report and attached the evidence files showing the destruction of the New Horizons. She included recordings of the Council session, making sure Earth Command could see exactly how the Council had reacted. She wanted them to see Vexcar's laughter, Zevron's indifference, the casual dismissal of 4,000 human lives. Then she added her final recommendation in bold letters at the end of the report. We have tried diplomacy. We have followed their rules. We have been patient and respectful. It has gained us nothing but contempt. The time for talking is over. If the Galactic Council will not recognize our right to exist as equals, then we must force them to recognize it. I recommend immediate military action. Kate sent the report and sat back in her chair, feeling exhausted but also strangely relieved. The decision was made. Now it was up to Earth Command to act on it. She looked out the window of her office at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, the wreckage of the New Horizons still floated, a monument to the Council's arrogance. Soon, Kate promised silently, that wreckage would mean something. It would be the spark that ignited humanity's rise from oppressed newcomers to a force that demanded respect. The Council had laughed at human grief. Soon they would learn that human anger was something far more dangerous. Fleet Admiral Ryan Blake stood on the bridge of the carrier Earth's Defiance, watching the tactical display show the positions of every human warship in the solar system. The display was impressive, far more impressive than the Galactic Council realized. 314 vessels ranging from small destroyers to massive carriers, all ready for combat. Ryan was a tall man in his late 50s, his gray hair cut short in military fashion. He had served in Earth's space fleet since its creation, back when humanity's first contact with alien species had made it clear that the universe was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. He had spent 30 years watching the Council treat his people like children, and now, finally, he had orders to do something about it. Kate Sullivan's report had arrived 2 days ago. Ryan had read it 3 times, watching the attached videos of the Council session each time. The laughter of the Draknor counselor haunted him. 4,000 colonists dead, including hundreds of children, and the aliens had laughed. Earth's leadership had debated for exactly 6 hours before making their decision. The vote had been unanimous. Humanity would go to war. Ryan activated the fleet-wide communication channel. Every ship in the solar system would receive this message. Every captain would hear his words. This is Fleet Admiral Blake to all United Earth Fleet vessels. By now, you have all received the briefing materials regarding the destruction of the colony ship New Horizons. You have all seen the evidence showing that Draknor Empire vessels deliberately destroyed an unarmed civilian ship, killing 4,000 of our people. You have all seen how the Galactic Council responded to this atrocity. Ryan paused, letting his words sink in. He could imagine the crews on hundreds of ships, gathered in their briefing rooms or at their stations, listening to his voice. For 30 years, we have tried to coexist peacefully with the species of the Galactic Council. We have followed their rules, respected their territorial claims, and attempted to earn their recognition as equals. We have been patient. We have been diplomatic. We have been respectful. His voice hardened, and we have been treated with nothing but contempt. On the tactical display, Ryan could see ships beginning to move, taking up positions for the operations he had planned. The mobilization was already underway. Across the solar system, humanity's military machine was coming to life. The time for patience is over. The time for diplomacy is over. Today, the United Earth Fleet goes to war, not for conquest, not for revenge, but for recognition. We will show the Galactic Council that humanity is not a species to be dismissed or mocked. We will show them that human lives matter. We will show them that we deserve respect. Ryan looked at the officers on his bridge. His executive officer, Commander Linda Torres, stood at the tactical station. His communications officer, Lieutenant Greg Mason, monitored the fleet channels. His weapons officer, Lieutenant Commander Karen White, waited at her console. Every face showed the same expression, determination mixed with barely controlled anger. Our first target is the Draknor border station in the Arcturus sector. This is where the New Horizons was destroyed. This is where Draknor patrol ships launched the attack that killed our people. We will hit them hard, we will hit them fast, and we will make them understand that there are consequences for murdering humans. Ryan deactivated the fleet-wide channel and turned to Commander Torres. Status of all task forces? Torres consulted her display. Task Force Alpha under Captain Nicole Wright reports ready for departure. 18 destroyers and 6 cruisers positioned at Mars orbit. Task Force Bravo is ready at Europa. Task Force Charlie reports from Titan orbit. All carrier groups are at full readiness, Ryan nodded. And the shipyards? Still producing, sir. The Council thinks those facilities are for civilian construction. They have no idea we've been building warships there for the past 5 years. That had been Earth's greatest secret. When the Council had granted humanity limited membership, they had imposed strict limitations on military shipbuilding. Earth was allowed a defensive fleet of no more than 100 vessels. The Council had assumed humanity would obey these restrictions. They had assumed wrong. The massive shipyards orbiting Mars, Europa, and Titan had been declared as civilian industrial facilities, building cargo ships and mining vessels. In reality, they had been constructing warships disguised as civilian craft. The hulls could be converted to military configuration in a matter of hours. Weapon systems built in secret facilities on Earth's moon could be installed quickly. Defensive shields and armor plating could be added on. When the Council's spy satellites watched the shipyards, they saw civilian construction. What they didn't see was that every cargo ship being built was actually a destroyer waiting for its weapons. Every mining vessel was a cruiser ready for combat. Ryan walked to the forward viewport, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Draknor Empire was going about its business, confident in its superiority, secure in the knowledge that the Council would protect them from any consequences. They were in for a surprise. Captain Wright is requesting final authorization to depart, Lieutenant Mason reported. Ryan activated his personal comm to speak with Captain Nicole Wright. She commanded the Destroyer Ranger, the lead ship of Task Force Alpha. Ryan had served with Nicole for 15 years. She was one of the best tactical commanders in the fleet. Captain Wright, you are authorized to depart. Your mission parameters are clear. Hit the Draknor border station, demonstrate our capabilities, and send a message that humanity will not tolerate attacks on our people. Understood, Admiral. Task Force Alpha is departing now. We'll make them remember the new horizons. Ryan watched on the tactical display as 24 ships broke orbit from Mars, their engines flaring bright blue as they accelerated toward the edge of the solar system. Once they cleared the heliopause, they would engage their faster-than-light drives and jump to the Arcturus sector. How long until they reach the target? Ryan asked. 18 hours, sir, Torres replied. The Draknor border station won't know what hit them. Ryan hoped that was true. The Draknor were formidable warriors, their empire built on military conquest. Their ships were heavily armed and well defended, but they were also arrogant, convinced of their own superiority. That arrogance would be their weakness. Over the next 12 hours, the rest of the fleet continued mobilizing. Task Force Bravo departed from Europa, heading for the shipping lanes that connected Draknor territory to the Council's core systems. Their mission was to disrupt Draknor supply lines and demonstrate that humanity could strike anywhere. Task Force Charlie, consisting of fast attack craft and stealth ships, departed from Titan with orders to gather intelligence on Council fleet movements. Earth needed to know how the other Council species would respond to humanity's attack on the Draknor. Ryan remained on the bridge of Earth's Defiance, monitoring the operations and coordinating the fleet's movements. His carrier would remain in Earth orbit for now, serving as the command center for all operations, but he knew that would change soon. Once the war truly began, he would need to take the fight to the enemy. Lieutenant Commander White approached him with a data pad. Admiral, I have the latest reports from Lieutenant Amy Chen in weapons development. The new railgun systems are ready for deployment. She's claiming they can punch through Draknor shields like they're not even there. Ryan took the pad and reviewed the data. Amy Chen was a brilliant engineer, one of the people responsible for many of humanity's technological advances. She had spent years studying captured alien technology, learning how Council weapons worked and then developing counters to them. The railguns were one of her innovations. Instead of using energy weapons like most Council species, the railguns used magnetic acceleration to fire solid projectiles at incredible velocities. The physics were simple, but the engineering was incredibly complex. Council shields were designed to deflect energy, not solid matter moving at significant fractions of the speed of light. Tell Lieutenant Chen, her weapons will get their field test soon enough, Ryan said. Make sure every ship in the fleet has access to her latest specifications. I want our people to have every advantage. Yes, sir. Ryan looked around his bridge, feeling a sense of pride in his crew and his fleet. These men and women were about to make history. They were about to prove that humanity deserved a place among the stars, that Earth's children would not be bullied or dismissed. Commander Torres, what's our status on reserve forces? All reserve fleets are mobilizing, sir. We have another 50 ships coming online over the next week, as the shipyards complete their conversions. Defense satellites around Earth, Mars, and the orbital colonies are at full readiness. If the Council tries to strike at our homeworld, they'll find we're not as vulnerable as they think. Good. I don't expect the Council to retaliate immediately, but we need to be prepared for anything. Ryan returned to his command chair and pulled up a secure channel to Earth Command. The faces of 5 generals and admirals appeared on his screen, the military leadership of United Earth. Admiral Blake, General Frank Morrison said, "We've been watching the mobilization. Excellent work. What's your assessment of our chances?" Ryan considered the question carefully. In a straight fight, the Draknor border station loomed in the darkness of space, a massive structure bristling with weapons platforms and defensive shields. Commander Jack Hayes sat in the cockpit of his fighter, one of 48 craft waiting in the launch bays of the carrier Swift Justice. Around him, the pilots of Gold Squadron checked their instruments and prepared for combat. Jack was 32 years old, a veteran pilot who had trained for this moment his entire career. He had joined the space fleet knowing that someday, humanity might have to fight for its survival. That day had finally arrived. Captain Nicole Wright's voice came over the fleet channel. "All ships, this is Captain Wright. We are emerging from faster-than-light travel in 30 seconds. Battle stations, prepare for immediate engagement." Jack's fighter powered up, systems coming online in sequence. Weapons armed, shields activated, engines ready. The carrier's launch bay doors began to open, revealing the stars beyond. Emergence in 5 then 4, 3 and 2, 1. Emergence now. The universe snapped back into focus as Task Force Alpha dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The Draknor border station appeared on Jack's sensors, exactly where intelligence had predicted it would be. But more importantly, so did the Draknor fleet. 50 warships orbited the station, a standard garrison force. They were massive vessels, built for intimidation as much as combat. Their hulls were dark red, decorated with the symbols of the Draknor Empire. Weapons batteries covered every surface, and their shields glowed with a faint crimson light. "This is Captain Nicole Wright of the United Earth Fleet Destroyer Ranger to Draknor Border Station. 6 days ago, your vessels destroyed the colony ship New Horizons, killing 4,000 unarmed civilians. The Galactic Council refused to hold you accountable for this act of murder. Therefore, humanity will deliver justice. This is your only warning. Surrender now, or we will destroy you." For a moment, there was silence. Then laughter came across the comm channel, harsh and mocking. A Draknor voice responded, translated by the communication systems. "Humans dare to threaten the Draknor Empire? Your pathetic fleet is outnumbered. You have 24 ships against our 50. Surrender now, and we may allow you to live as prisoners." Captain Wright's response was cold and clear. "We gave you a chance. Remember that. All ships weapons free. Show them what humans can do." Jack's fighter launched from the carrier along with 47 others, accelerating hard into the space between the two fleets. His targeting system locked onto the nearest Draknor cruiser, highlighting weak points in its armor. The new tactical software that Lieutenant Chen had developed was already proving useful, analyzing the enemy ship's structure and identifying vulnerable areas. "Gold Squadron, form up on me," Jack called to his pilots. "We're going for their command ship. Take out their coordination, and the rest of the fleet will fall apart." The Draknor ships opened fire first, massive energy beams lancing through space. But the human ships were already moving, executing evasive maneuvers that the rigid Draknor formations couldn't match. The energy beams missed, hitting empty space where human ships had been moments before. Then the human ships returned fire, and everything changed. The destroyers opened up with their new railgun systems, solid projectiles accelerating to incredible speeds. The Draknor shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, barely slowed the projectiles down. Solid metal slugs punched through shields and armor, tearing into the Draknor ships with devastating force. One Draknor cruiser took 3 railgun hits in rapid succession, its hull breaching in multiple places. Atmosphere vented into space, carrying debris and bodies with it. The ship listed to one side, its engines failing, no longer a threat. Jack led Gold Squadron through the chaos, weaving between enemy ships and incoming fire. His fighters' weapons were smaller than the capital ship's railguns, but they used the same principle. He fired a burst at a Draknor destroyer's sensor array, the projectiles shredding the delicate equipment. The destroyer went blind, its targeting systems failing. "Good hit, Commander," one of his pilots called. "Their sensors are offline." "Keep moving," Jack ordered. "Don't give them time to adjust. Hit and run just like we practiced." The Draknor were trying to respond, but their tactics were outdated. They formed defensive formations, concentrating their shields and presenting a unified front. It was a strategy that had worked for centuries against other Council species, but humans didn't fight like other Council species. Captain Wright's destroyer Ranger dove under the Draknor formation, using the wreckage of destroyed ships as cover. Her railguns fired continuously, targeting engines and weapons systems. She wasn't trying to destroy every enemy ship. She was crippling them, taking away their ability to fight effectively. Another human destroyer, the Falcon, executed a dangerous maneuver that made Jack's heart skip. It flew directly at a Draknor battleship, all guns firing, then rolled at the last second and passed under the massive ship's hull. The battleship's own defensive fire struck several of its escort ships as they tried to target the fast-moving human vessel. Jack's squadron reached the Draknor command ship, a massive vessel that coordinated the entire garrison fleet. It was heavily shielded and armed, designed to survive anything the Council's enemies could throw at it. But the Draknor had never faced human determination before. All fighters, concentrate fire on the command ship's communication arrays, Jack ordered. We need to blind their command structure. 48 fighters swarmed the command ship, their weapons tearing into the external communication arrays. The Draknor tried to swat them away with point defense guns, but the fighters were too small and too fast. One by one, the communication arrays were destroyed. Jack could see the effect immediately. The Draknor fleet's coordination began to break down. Ships that had been moving in formation started drifting out of position. Fire patterns became erratic. Individual captains were making their own decisions now, unable to receive orders from their commander. Good work, Gold Squadron. Captain Wright's voice came over the comm. Now get clear. We're bringing in the heavy guns. Jack led his squadron away from the command ship just as 3 human cruisers opened fire with everything they had. Railguns, missiles, and experimental energy weapons that Lieutenant Chen had designed all struck the command ship simultaneously. Its shields flared bright red, holding for a moment, then collapsed under the concentrated assault. The command ship's hull breached in a dozen places. Its engines exploded, sending chunks of debris spinning into space. The massive vessel began to break apart, splitting down the middle as structural supports failed. The Draknor fleet's coordination collapsed completely. Some ships tried to press the attack while others attempted to retreat. A few just sat there, paralyzed by the loss of their command structure. It was chaos, and the human fleet exploited it ruthlessly. Captain Wright's tactical display showed the battle turning decisively in humanity's favor. The Draknor had started with 50 ships. Now they had less than 30 combat-effective vessels, and the number was dropping rapidly. All ships continue the attack, Captain Wright ordered. Focus on disabling rather than destroying when possible. We want prisoners. We want survivors who can tell the Council what happened here. The battle raged for another hour. The Draknor fought fiercely, their ships powerful and their crews brave. But bravery couldn't overcome the tactical disadvantage they faced. The human ships were faster, more maneuverable, and equipped with weapons that the Draknor defenses couldn't handle. One by one, Draknor ships went dark, their systems disabled and their crews forced to abandon ship. Some tried to self-destruct rather than surrender, but human boarding teams managed to capture several vessels intact. Finally, with only 12 ships left operational and the border station heavily damaged, the Draknor commander broadcast a message. We surrender. Stop firing. We surrender. Captain Wright ordered a ceasefire and the human fleet held position, weapons still trained on the surviving Draknor ships. Jack landed his fighter back on the Swift Justice, exhausted and shaking from adrenaline. He had lost 3 pilots from his squadron, their fighters destroyed in the battle. It hurt, but he knew it could have been much worse. The human fleet had destroyed or disabled 40 Draknor warships while losing only 8 of their own. Captain Wright's face appeared on the fleet channel, addressing all human ships. Excellent work, everyone. We've won the first battle of this war. We've shown the Draknor that humanity is not to be trifled with. But this is just the beginning. The Council will respond and we need to be ready. She paused, looking directly into the camera. I want all ships to document everything. Record the battle, gather evidence, and prepare a full report. When the Council asks what happened here, we'll show them. We'll show them that the Draknor attacked first when they destroyed the New Horizons. We'll show them that we offered surrender terms before we opened fire. We'll show them that humanity fights with honor, even when facing enemies who have none. Jack pulled off his helmet and ran a hand through his sweat-soaked hair. Around him in the launch bay, other pilots were climbing out of their fighters, helping the wounded and checking damage. The mood was strange, a mix of celebration and shock. They had won, but the reality of combat was sinking in now. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 12 hours after the Battle of Arcturus. The chamber was filled with noise as representatives from dozens of species argued, shouted accusations, and demanded explanations. Ambassador Kate Sullivan stood in the center of it all, calm and composed despite the chaos surrounding her. She had returned to the council station immediately after the battle, ready to face whatever came next. Unlike her last appearance in this chamber, Kate felt no nervousness or uncertainty. Humanity had shown its strength. Now the council would have to respond. Council Speaker Zevron finally managed to restore order, his crystalline form pulsing with light as he called for silence. When the chamber had quieted enough for him to be heard, he turned to Kate with an expression of barely contained anger. "Ambassador Sullivan, explain yourself. Your species has committed an act of war against the Draknor Empire, destroying a border station and a garrison fleet. This is an outrageous violation of council law. What possible justification can you offer?" Kate activated her holographic display, showing footage from the battle. But first she showed something else: the wreckage of the New Horizons. The bodies floating in space, the evidence of Draknor weapons fire. 6 days ago, I stood in this chamber and presented evidence that Draknor forces had murdered 4,000 human colonists. I requested an investigation. I requested justice. I was denied both. The council declared this matter closed and refused to hold the Draknor accountable. Kate's voice was steady but carried an edge of steel. "If the council will not provide justice, then humanity will provide it ourselves." Councillor Vexkar of the Draknor Empire rose from his platform, his scales flushing dark with rage. "You dare speak of justice? You attacked without provocation. You destroyed council property. You killed Draknor warriors who were simply performing their duties." "We gave them a chance to surrender," Kate replied coldly. "Captain Wright offered terms before opening fire. Your commander chose to fight. That was his decision, and he paid the price for it." "Lies. Human lies." Kate played more footage, this time showing Captain Wright's communication to the Draknor border station, offering them a chance to surrender peacefully. The recording was clear and undeniable. "These are not lies, Counselor. These are facts. Facts that you and the rest of the council chose to ignore when it was convenient. But you cannot ignore this." She gestured at the holographic images showing destroyed Draknor ships, 40 warships destroyed or disabled, a border station crippled, all accomplished by 24 human vessels. The age of treating humanity as inferior is over. A ripple of sound moved through the chamber. Some species seemed shocked by what they were seeing. Others appeared angry. A few looked almost impressed. Councillor Threen of the Aquiline Confederacy spoke up, his voice measured and calm. "Ambassador Sullivan raises a valid point. The Draknor did destroy a human civilian vessel without proper justification. The Council's refusal to investigate was, in my opinion, a failure of our responsibility." "The Aquilans always were soft," Vexkar snarled. "This is not about justice. This is about primitive humans overstepping their place in the galactic order." "Perhaps," Threen replied quietly. "It is about that order needing to change." The chamber erupted in arguments again. Kate watched as the council fractured along predictable lines. Some species supported the Draknor, either out of alliance or because they benefited from the current power structure. Others, like the Aquilans, seemed willing to at least consider humanity's position. Councillor Zalvex of the Valix Collective spoke next, his insectoid features unreadable. "Regardless of who is right or wrong about the colony ship, humanity has now committed an act of war. This cannot stand. If we allow lesser species to attack council members without consequences, chaos will ensue." "Lesser species?" Kate challenged. "Your own military analysts are reviewing the battle data right now. I suggest you ask them how lesser humanity appeared to the Draknor garrison fleet. Ask them how our supposedly primitive weapons defeated shields that have protected Draknor ships for centuries. Ask them how our tactics overcame numerical superiority." Zalvex's mandibles clicked together in what might have been annoyance. "Technology can be stolen or purchased. One battle proves nothing. Then test us," Kate said, her voice carrying through the chamber. "Send your fleets against ours. See for yourself what humans are capable of. But be warned, we are not the weak, compliant species you thought we were. We have been building, preparing, and waiting for this moment. You underestimated us, and the Draknor paid the price." Council Speaker Zevron raised his hands, calling for silence once more. "This debate is pointless. The facts are clear. Humanity has attacked a council member. There must be consequences. I propose we vote on military action to suppress this human rebellion and restore order." "Rebellion?" Kate laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. "We are not rebelling. We are demanding the recognition and respect that any sovereign species deserves. The fact that you call this a rebellion reveals exactly how you see us. as subjects who should obey, not equals who deserve consideration. Call it what you will, Zevron replied. The Council will not tolerate aggression from any species, especially one as young and inexperienced as yours. I call for a vote on deploying a joint Council fleet to subdue humanity and force compliance with Council law. Kate had expected this. She had prepared for it. Before you vote, Councilors, you should know something. Earth is not alone in this. We have been contacted by several species who share our frustrations with Council policies. Species who have been oppressed, exploited, or dismissed just as we have been. This caused another stir in the chamber. Several councilors exchanged glances, clearly wondering which species Kate was referring to. You're bluffing, Vexcar said, but his tone suggested uncertainty. Am I? Ask yourselves why the Tari Republic has remained silent during this session. Ask why the Corvin clans have not condemned our actions. Ask why even the Aquilans are questioning the Council's decisions. Kate looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of various representatives. The galaxy is watching this moment, Councilors. How you respond will determine not just humanity's future, but the future of the Council itself. The vote was called anyway. Kate stood silently as the Councilors registered their decisions. The results were closer than she had expected. 57 species voted in favor of military action against humanity. 43 voted against or abstained. It was enough for the measure to pass, but the lack of unanimous support was telling. Council Speaker Zevron announced the results. The Council has voted to deploy a joint military fleet to suppress human aggression and restore order. The fleet will consist of 200 vessels drawn from multiple Council species. Commander Zartok of the Velix Collective has been chosen to lead the operation. Kate had researched Commander Zartok. He was a celebrated military leader, known for crushing rebellions and putting down uprisings among species that challenged Council authority. He was experienced, ruthless, and confident. In other words, he was exactly the kind of commander who would underestimate humanity. The Council has made its decision, Kate said formally. Humanity will respond accordingly. But remember this moment, Councilors. Remember that you had a choice. You could have chosen justice and equality. Instead, you chose war. Whatever happens next is on your heads. She turned and walked out of the chamber, ignoring the shouts and protests behind her. Her aide, Peter Collins, fell into step beside her as she headed back to the human embassy. They're really going to send a fleet against us, Peter said quietly. 200 ships. That's more than our entire military force. I know, Kate replied. But numbers aren't everything. The Council is divided. Several species are openly questioning their leadership, and Commander Zartok is exactly the kind of overconfident commander we can exploit. How can you be so calm about this? Kate stopped and looked at him. Because I've seen what humans can do when we're cornered. I've seen the innovation, the creativity, the sheer stubborn determination that defines our species. The Council thinks this will be an easy war. They think overwhelming numbers will force us to surrender. They don't understand that humans fight hardest when the odds are against us. Back in her office, Kate sent an encrypted message to Admiral Blake, informing him of the Council's decision and providing details about Commander Zartok and the fleet being assembled against them. She included intelligence on the composition of the Council fleet, which species were contributing ships, and potential weaknesses to exploit. Then she opened another communication channel, this one to the Tari Republic. Ambassador Kethal appeared on her screen, his blue-skinned face showing concern. Ambassador Sullivan, I heard about the Council vote. The Tari government wants you to know that while we cannot openly support your war effort, we will provide humanitarian assistance to human colonies. We will also share intelligence about Council fleet movements. Thank you, Ambassador, Kate said sincerely. Your support means more than you know. The Council has been oppressing smaller species for too long, Kethal replied. The Tari have suffered under their economic restrictions for decades. If humanity can shake up the established order, it will benefit. Commander Zartok stood on the bridge of his flagship Dominion's Edge, surveying the fleet assembled under his command. 200 warships from 8 different Council species filled the space around him, the largest military force deployed in over a century. It was, he thought with satisfaction, overwhelming power. The humans would take one look at this armada and surrender immediately. The fleet had gathered at the edge of Proxima Centauri space, where humanity had established several mining colonies and research outposts. Zartok's orders were simple. Demand human withdrawal from all territories beyond Earth's solar system. Capture or destroy any human military vessels that refuse to surrender, and demonstrate Council superiority so decisively that humanity would never dare challenge them again. Communications. Open a channel to all human colonies in this system, Zartok ordered. His mandibles clicked together, a sign of anticipation among the Valix species. The channel opened and Zartok broadcast his message across all frequencies. Attention human colonists. This is Commander Zartok of the Galactic Council Enforcement Fleet. Your species has committed acts of war against the Council. You are hereby ordered to evacuate all territories beyond your home system immediately. Human military vessels are ordered to power down weapons and surrender. You have 1 standard hour to comply. Failure to do so will result in the destruction of your colonies and the elimination of your military forces. Zartok closed the channel and waited. Around him, his officers monitored the human colony's responses. The mining stations and research outposts were evacuating, shuttles lifting off and heading for the system's edge. Good. At least the civilians had some sense. But the military response was not what Zartok expected. Instead of powering down, the human warships scattered throughout the system began moving into attack formations. Worse, there were more of them than intelligence had suggested. Sensors showed 73 human vessels ranging from small destroyers to several carriers. Status on the human fleet? Zartok demanded. They are forming defensive positions around the colonies, Commander, his tactical officer reported. They show no signs of surrendering. Then they have chosen death. All ships, attack formation. We will crush this pathetic resistance and teach humanity a lesson they will never forget. What Zartok didn't know was that Admiral Ryan Blake had anticipated exactly this response. The human fleet had been reinforced specifically for this battle, with ships pulled from defensive positions throughout human space. More importantly, the fleet had spent the past week studying the Council's Joint Task Force, learning how the different species coordinated, where their communication protocols were weakest, and what tactics they typically employed. Captain Nicole Wright commanded a squadron of 18 destroyers positioned near the largest mining colony. She watched the Council fleet begin its advance, their ships moving in the standard formation that Council forces had used for centuries. It was intimidating in its size and power, but it was also predictable. All ships weapons free, Wright ordered. Execute Plan Delta. Let's show them what human determination looks like. The human fleet didn't wait for the Council ships to reach optimal firing range. Instead, they surged forward, breaking into smaller squadrons that scattered in different directions. It looked like panic, like an uncoordinated retreat. Zartok smiled, thinking the humans had lost their nerve. He was wrong. The human squadrons weren't fleeing. They were maneuvering into positions that the rigid Council formation couldn't easily respond to. While the main Council fleet maintained its impressive but slow advance, human ships darted around the flanks, targeting specific vessels and exploiting gaps in the formation. Wright's squadron focused on the Valix command ships. Using intelligence provided by the Tauri Republic, they knew exactly which vessels coordinated different sections of the Council fleet. Take out those ships and the entire formation would lose cohesion. Target the Valix cruiser at coordinates 724, Wright ordered. All railguns fire. 18 destroyers opened fire simultaneously, their railguns sending solid projectiles screaming through space. The Valix cruiser's shields held for a moment, then collapsed under the concentrated bombardment. The projectiles punched through armor, destroying the ship's communication arrays and sensor clusters. The cruiser went dark, no longer able to coordinate its section of the fleet. 12 Council ships suddenly found themselves without orders, their captains uncertain whether to press forward or wait for new instructions. Commander Jack Hayes led his fighter squadrons in a different role this time. Instead of engaging in direct combat, they deployed specialized drones throughout the battlefield. Each drone emitted false sensor signatures, making the Council's targeting system see phantom ships that didn't exist. Zartok watched in frustration as his fleet's sensors reported hundreds of enemy contacts, far more than the actual human forces present. His ships wasted ammunition firing at ghost targets while real human vessels struck from unexpected angles. Recalibrate sensors, Zartok shouted. Filter out false readings. But every time his technicians adjusted the sensors, the human drones adapted, changing their signatures to match the new parameters. It was a technological arms race happening in real time, and the humans were winning. Lieutenant Amy Chen's experimental weapons proved their worth again. Her new missile systems used advanced artificial intelligence to coordinate their attacks, each missile communicating with others to optimize their impact patterns. When a salvo of 50 missiles targeted a Council battleship, they didn't just attack randomly. They analyzed the ship's shield frequency, identified weak points, and struck those points simultaneously. The battleship, a massive Draknor vessel that should have been nearly invulnerable, took critical damage from missiles that individually shouldn't have been able to penetrate its defenses. Its engines failed, leaving it drifting helplessly as human ships moved past to engage other targets. The battle spread across the Proxima system, becoming a chaotic mess that favored human tactics over Council discipline. Human ships used asteroid fields for cover, employed the system's gas giant for gravitational slingshot maneuvers, and even used the radiation from the system's star to blind enemy sensors. Commander Steve Parker, coordinating intelligence from the human flagship Earth's Defiance, identified another weakness in the Council fleet's structure. "Admiral Blake, I'm detecting encrypted communications between the Velix and Draknor command ships. They're arguing about tactics. The Draknor want to press the attack while the Velix want to consolidate and form a tighter defensive position." Admiral Blake recognized the opportunity immediately. "Target all communications between Council command vessels. Cut off their ability to coordinate. Let their internal disagreements tear them apart." Human cyber warfare specialists, working from secure facilities on the fleet's carriers, launched sophisticated attacks on the Council's communication networks. They couldn't break the encryption, but they could disrupt the signals, delay messages, and create enough confusion to make coordination nearly impossible. Zartok found himself unable to communicate effectively with half his fleet. Orders were delayed or corrupted. Status reports arrived late or not at all. His impressive armada was becoming a collection of independent units, each fighting its own battle without proper coordination. "Recall all ships to defensive formation," Zartok ordered. "We need to consolidate." But the order never reached many of his vessels. Human signal jamming saw to that. Those ships that did receive the order found themselves harassed by human squadrons every time they tried to regroup. It was death by 1,000 cuts, each one small but cumulatively devastating. Captain Wright led her squadron in a daring assault on Commander Zartok's flagship. 18 destroyers against a vessel 3 times their size seemed like suicide, but Wright had studied the Dominion's edge extensively. She knew where its weapons couldn't target, where its armor was thinnest, where critical systems were vulnerable. Her ships dove under the flagship, using the ship's own bulk to shield them from other Council vessels. Then they opened fire at point-blank range, railguns tearing into the flagship's underbelly. The shots were precise, targeting the ship's main reactor coolant system. The flagship didn't explode, but it began overheating rapidly. Zartok had no choice but to order an emergency shutdown of the main reactor, leaving his ship running on auxiliary power. Without its primary systems, the Dominion's edge could barely defend itself, much less command the fleet. The battle raged for 6 hours. Human ships were destroyed, good people died, but the Council fleet suffered worse. Their superior numbers meant nothing when they couldn't coordinate effectively. Their powerful weapons couldn't hit targets that refused to fight in predictable patterns. Their experienced commanders found themselves unable to adapt to human unpredictability. Finally, with 89 of his ships destroyed or disabled and his flagship crippled, Commander Zartok gave an order he had never expected to give. "All vessels withdraw. Fall back to the rally point." The Council fleet began a fighting retreat, trying to maintain some semblance of order as they withdrew from the system. Human forces pursued them to the edge of Proxima space, then let them go. There was no point in chasing them into deep space where Council reinforcements. The defeat at Proxima changed everything. News of the battle spread through Council space like wildfire, reaching every species, every colony, every outpost. The mighty Council fleet, 200 warships strong, had been defeated by 73 human vessels. Commander Zartok, celebrated as one of the Council's greatest military leaders, had retreated in disgrace. Ambassador Kate Sullivan watched the political fallout from her office at the human embassy station. Her communication channels were flooded with messages from species she had never even spoken to before. Some were congratulations. Others were requests for meetings. A few were thinly veiled threats. All of them represented opportunities. The first official contact came from Ambassador Kethal of the Tari Republic. His blue face appeared on Kate's screen, and she could see genuine excitement in his expression. Ambassador Sullivan, the Tauri government wishes to formalize our relationship with humanity. We can no longer offer only covert support. We want to propose a mutual defense pact. Kate felt her heart beat faster. This was exactly what humanity needed. The Tauri Republic wants to openly ally with us. You understand that will make you a target for Council retaliation? Kethal smiled. The Council has been strangling our economy for decades with unfair tariffs and trade restrictions. They denied us membership for insufficient technological advancement, yet they steal our innovations and claim them as their own. We are tired of being exploited. Your victory at Proxima showed us that the Council can be challenged. We want to stand with you. Then humanity would be honored to have the Tari as allies, Kate said formally. Let's draft the terms of our agreement. The Tari alliance was announced 3 days later, sending shockwaves through the Council. The Tari were a peaceful species, known for their trading networks and diplomatic skills. If they were willing to side with humanity against the Council, what did that say about the Council's legitimacy? The second contact came from an unexpected source: the Corvin clans. These warrior species had been denied Council membership for being too aggressive and militaristic. Their representative, War Chief Drakakon, appeared on Kate's screen with a fierce grin. Humans fight well. Corvin respects strength. We propose alliance. Your technology, our warriors. Together we crush Council arrogance. Kate knew the Corvin reputation. They were fierce fighters. Their culture built around honor in combat. They had been trying to gain Council membership for over a century, only to be repeatedly rejected while more civilized species were accepted. The Corvin clans want to fight alongside humanity? Kate asked. Corvin want revenge, Drakakon corrected. Council treats warriors like savages, calls us primitive while they hide behind old laws and older privileges. You showed them strength matters. Now we join you. Make them respect all of us. The Corvin alliance brought something humanity desperately needed: experienced ground forces. Human Marines were well-trained but inexperienced in actual combat. The Corvin had been fighting for survival among themselves and against pirates for generations. They knew warfare in a way humans were still learning. Within a week of the Proxima battle, 3 more species had approached Kate with offers of cooperation. Not all of them wanted formal alliances, but they offered resources, safe harbor for human ships, and intelligence about Council military movements. The most significant contact came from Counselor Threen of the Aquilin Confederacy. Unlike the others, Threen was an actual Council member, his species having held membership for over 2,000 years. His message was brief. Meet me in neutral space. Come alone. We have much to discuss. Kate knew this could be a trap, but the opportunity was too important to ignore. She took a small, fast ship to the coordinates Threen provided, a location in unclaimed space far from any Council or human territory. Threen's ship was already waiting. He invited Kate aboard, and she found him alone in his private quarters. The Aquilan was a tall, elegant being with flowing fins instead of hair and skin that shimmered with iridescent colors. You are wondering why I wanted to meet, Threen said, offering Kate a seat. The thought crossed my mind, Kate replied carefully. Because I believe the Council is dying, and I want to help build something better in its place. Threen's words were shocking coming from a Council member. My species has been part of the Council for millennia. We have watched it grow corrupt, complacent, and cruel. The younger species are oppressed while the old ones hoard power and privileges. This is not the great civilization we once were. So you want humanity to destroy the Council? Kate asked. No, I want humanity to transform it. The Aquilans cannot lead this change. We are too invested in the current system, too compromised by our own position. But humans? You are new enough to see the problems clearly, strong enough to force change, and seemingly wise enough not to simply replace one tyranny with another. Threen pulled up a holographic display showing the political structure of the Council. There are 15 species on the Council who are sympathetic to reform. They won't openly side with humanity, not yet, but they will oppose military action against you. They will vote against sanctions and blockades. They will slow down the Council's ability to respond to your actions. Why are you telling me this? Because I am playing a long game, Ambassador Sullivan. If humanity wins this war, the Council will be forced to change. If humanity loses but fights well enough, the Council will still be forced to change. Either way, the age of unquestioned Council supremacy is over. I want to ensure that what replaces it is better, not worse. Kate studied the Aquilan carefully. What do you want in return for this information? Nothing immediate. But when the time comes to rebuild, I want humanity to remember that not all Council members were your enemies. I want you to remember that some of us tried to help. Threen's fins rippled in what might have been sadness. My species has much to atone for. We stood by while others were oppressed. We voted for laws that benefited us at the expense of younger species. I cannot undo those mistakes, but perhaps I can help prevent future ones. Kate left the meeting with more intelligence than she had hoped for. Threen's information revealed which Council species were wavering, which were committed to war, and which might be convinced to stay neutral. It was invaluable. Back on Earth, Admiral Ryan Blake was dealing with different kinds of opportunities. The victories at Arcturus and Proxima had proven human military capabilities, but they had also exposed humanity's weaknesses. The fleet had taken heavy losses, and ship production couldn't keep pace with the rate of attrition. We need time to rebuild and rearm, Blake said during a conference with Earth's military leadership. But the Council won't give us that time. They're assembling a new fleet, bigger than the last one. Intelligence suggests 600 ships this time. General Frank Morrison leaned forward, his expression grim. Can we win against those numbers? Not in a direct confrontation. We've proven we can outfight them ship for ship, but 600 vessels is too many. We'd be overwhelmed eventually. Then what do you propose? Blake pulled up a star map showing Council territory. We don't fight their fleet. We go around it. We take the war directly to their homeworlds, strike their industrial centers, disrupt their supply lines, force them to divide their forces to protect multiple targets. Commander Steve Parker spoke up from his position at the intelligence station. That's risky, sir. If we leave Earth and our colonies exposed while we attack deep in Council territory, they could strike at our homeworld. They could, Blake agreed. But they won't. The Council isn't unified enough for that kind of bold action. The Draknor might want to attack Earth, but the Velix will want to defend their industrial colonies. The Aquilans will argue for diplomatic solutions. They'll split their fleet trying to do everything, which means they'll accomplish nothing. Captain Nicole Wright, who had been promoted to Rear Admiral after her performance at Proxima, studied the proposed attack routes. We'd need to move fast, hit hard, and keep them off balance. It would be exhausting for our crews. War is exhausting, Blake replied. But this is how we win. We can't match them in numbers or resources. We have to be smarter, faster, and more willing to take risks. Lieutenant Amy Chen presented her latest weapons developments, including enhanced versions of her AI-guided missiles and new electronic warfare systems designed to cripple Council communications. With these upgrades, our fleet can punch significantly above its weight class. I estimate each human ship will be worth 3 or 4 Council vessels in combat effectiveness. The plan took shape over several days of intense planning. The human fleet would split into multiple task forces, each targeting different Council territories simultaneously. Admiral Blake would lead the main force against the Draknor homeworld. Admiral Wright would command a squadron targeting Velix industrial colonies. Commander Jack Hayes would take a carrier group to raid supply convoys. It was an aggressive, risky strategy that depended on human adaptability and the Council's inability to coordinate effectively. But it was also the only strategy that gave humanity a real chance of winning the war. Kate returned from her meeting with Threen and immediately coordinated with the military leadership. The information about sympathetic Council members was crucial for planning the attacks. Some targets needed to be. The Draknor homeworld of Draknar Prime hung in space like a red jewel, its surface covered in sprawling cities and military installations. Admiral Ryan Blake watched it from the bridge of Earth's Defiance, knowing that in a few hours those cities would be under attack. Not the civilian areas, never those, but the military bases, the shipyards, the command centers that made Draknor aggression possible. Status of all task forces? Blake asked. Commander Linda Torres checked her displays. Task Force Alpha reports in position at the Velix industrial colonies. Task Force Bravo is ready to strike Council supply lines. Task Force Charlie is holding at the rally point, ready to support wherever needed. And our Tauri and Corvan allies? The Tauri have positioned their ships to defend our colonies while we're away. The Corvan have deployed 3 war fleets to conduct raids on Council outposts. They're eager to prove themselves, Blake nodded. Operation Deep Strike was the largest coordinated military action in human history. 300 human ships, supported by Tauri defensive forces and Corvan raiders, were about to strike simultaneously at targets throughout Council space. It was audacious, possibly insane, and absolutely necessary. All ships, this is Admiral Blake. Operation Deep Strike begins now. May fortune favor the bold. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in orbit around Draknar Prime. The Draknar orbital defenses, massive weapons platforms that had protected the homeworld for centuries, immediately went active. Warning klaxons sounded throughout the planet's defense command centers, but Blake had studied those defenses for months. Lieutenant Amy Chen had developed specialized EMP weapons specifically to disable them without destroying them. The goal wasn't to massacre the Draknar people, but to demonstrate that their arrogance had consequences. Launch EMP missiles, Blake ordered. Target only military installations. No strikes on civilian areas. Hundreds of missiles streaked through space, each one carrying Chen's specialized EMP warheads. They struck the orbital defense platforms with perfect precision. The platform's shields deflected the physical impact, but the electromagnetic,